Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast. Every time we come on here, we start off and we start talking through things that's going on in recent cricket. The last time we came on, we're like, you know what? Breaking news, Ashley Giles has gone. And just as we finished, after we'd spent 20 minutes talking about, Silverwood's going to go and Thorpe's going to go and there's going to be this whole change of the guard. Well, we checked Twitter and as soon as we'd finished, they had gone. So guess what we're going to talk about today? It is Silverwood's gone, Thorpe's gone. Where do England go next? I'm Rob. This is Rich. Welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, Rob? You good?
Cleansed. I feel like we've had a deep cleansing of the English hierarchy. Maybe some more cleansing and cleaning to go, but it's a foot in the right direction, mate.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's like you say, it's just inevitable, isn't it? That as soon as we stop recording, the news breaks. We said about it when we spoke in the last pod, didn't we? That it was going to happen. Silverwood has to go. They had to clear house. Graham Thorpe, I've got to say first, any bloke with the title batting coach from the Ashes, doesn't matter who you were, it could have been Bradman reincarnated. You were going to get sacked after that performance. So sorry, Graham. The cigar bit was just like this is a really easy decision now. But yeah, inevitable. Silverwood, nice bloke, it seems, but it had to happen. Clean house. There's only one man standing now, isn't there? Well, two, if you class Mr. Harrison. Yeah,
very, very, very interesting. I think it almost feels like Thorpe probably knew he was going to go based on batting or bowling coach is very much, well, they're all performance related, but they're really performance related and very interchangeable per series, depending where you're playing in the world and all these things. So understandable he's going, but it is good to see a clear line in the sand on the Giles Silverwood coalition. Like it was so, it was Giles's world. This is how Giles wanted to run it, and Silverwood got all these powers thrown at him towards April last year. Don't know why that was. Cost cutting possibly, but no one liked it. It didn't work out very well. And you can look at Silverwood's reign and go, it started all right. You know, they won in South Africa and they won that amazing test match in Chennai before we got spinning wickets and we didn't know what to do. But it was from that point, around then, that he got given all that power. That was the start of the power that he was given. And we won one test match in the following 14, I think it was.
Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense, did it? At the time, it was like, okay, well, at least we know who's responsible. So if it does go south, there's only one man you can blame. There's nobody else. You can't blame selectors if you're the selector. You can't blame the coach if you're the coach. So I understand to a point why Giles wanted to look at that route and have that setup in place, but it just didn't make sense with the amount of counties, with the amount of cricket, the fact that he was coached for all three formats. It was a poison chalice. It was never ever going to work. He was overloaded. There needed to be other people in place, whether that was another coach and if a white ball versus red ball, or more selection, selection panel, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So it was inevitable. And after that performance, we've spoke about it at length. You can't get past what happened. And it wasn't just if it was just the performances and everything else was absolutely, I don't know why, but I've got an urge to say tickety-boo. But if everything else was tickety-boo...
We've peaked on the podcast again.
then you can say it'd be hard done by. But it was shambolic. We spoke about it. The selection was poor. Who we chose to play at which game was poor. There was so many poor decisions. The management of the coaches seemed to be poor. Everything was poor. Silverwood's come out of this with a lot of credit, a lot of respect from the players. And that is so important with what people have been going through in the last couple of years. That shouldn't be underestimated. So fantastic. Well done, Chris Silverwood. You've put the players first. I think that's great. But it just wasn't to be. I think he'll go on and get a very good job somewhere, but just not as in England. I'm looking forward to Andrew Strauss really ripping things up and finding a new way forward.
So I'm just thinking about this while you're talking about it. And, Strauss has come out and said he's been put under impossible strain during this period for the workload that he's got to take on, the tournaments they've got to go to, the Ashes they've got to go to. He's been hung out to dry. And, just as he was talking about it, it almost feels like Ashley Giles is director of cricket, right?
Yep.
If I load everything up, and I'm not saying it's this, but it's just popped in my head while we're chatting. If we load everything up on one guy who's solely responsible for the outcome of the English cricket team, I may go scot-free. And I'm sure that's not what it is. But there was just a moment while you were talking through it then, and I'm like, nah, it can't be that. But he has been under impossible strain, and it has been ridiculously hard. He has come out, and everyone says, what a great bloody bloke. Takes care of his players, puts them first. You know, it does come back to that Tom Harrison conversation of you're ultimately at the top, responsible for everyone else underneath. But if we had a different figure, a non-Chris Silverwood, who's a good bloke, if we had someone who was no, that's not all right, no, that's not all right, who would fight back against maybe a Giles or the scheduling and all these things and back the serious problem that's going on, would we had a different outcome, or would we have still gone and done on these tours and all the players would be burnt out and we still would have underperformed? Because it almost feels like Silverwood's just, it didn't matter who it was. Like, whoever turns up is going to be...
It did seem, like we said, it did seem inevitable. But it's an interesting point you make, really, isn't it? I don't think Giles necessarily would have done that intentionally. But, survival, isn't it? Survival instincts maybe kicked in when he was setting this up. He didn't even realise. It is quite notable as well that Andrew Strauss, I can't remember the exact wording, what you just said, but Strauss, that's a dig, isn't it, at what was set up and how it was arranged and how it was organised. So Giles isn't going to feel great about that, but that's the way it is. But we spoke about this before as well, though. The man at the very top, Harrison, is the one that sets all these parameters, sets what he wants from everybody. If the man below him has gone and the man below has gone, how on earth is this guy clinging on? He's saying that he's the man. If he thinks he was the wrong man, he would step down immediately. The honourable thing, the shirt and tie honourable thing. But he won't. And we said last time, I don't want to go down this route again, but he's still going to take his bonus. He still thinks he's done a good job. Every statement that comes out, he's patting everyone on the back saying what a great job they've done. Well, why has everyone been sacked? Why has it been a shambles? You spoke about as well about, maybe if someone had pushed back. Well, you've got a character like Justin Langer. But I think with the way this, he did that in Australia, and I think he would have done that if he was coach over here. But I don't think that would have worked over here, because you push back against the ECB saying, we don't want to do this tour, we don't want to go to the Ashes, we don't want to do this. They might have smiled and said, okay, player welfare and all the rest of it, but you'd have been sacked anyway.
You would have been sacked.
Because all the money you've lost them, because all they seem to care about is money at the ECB. Yeah. So you would have still been sacked. So no matter how this was handled, short of England winning the Ashes and playing well and actually playing some good cricket, it was always inevitable that this is what would happen, that the players... they were going to fall short. It almost felt inevitable, didn't it, that the result was we were going to fall short, and therefore the coaches, in particular, Silverwood, the head coach, who was responsible for everything, and Thorpe, who just, you can't keep a coach when the batting has been that pathetic.
You definitely can't, mate. Strauss made another interesting point in his statement. I'm calling it a statement. It's just a few lines. I feel someone who had an outside view, who can challenge the thoughts inside the dressing room, is a healthy thing. And again, poo-pooing on the regime that's been set up under Giles, that's basically going, this is ridiculous. You need people that think differently at different levels to be able to make sure you're selecting the right people. You're playing at the Gabba, and you've got Stuart Broad, who gets David Warner out every single time, playing on that pitch. You've got Anderson playing on that pitch. You're picking teams to win games of cricket, not just rest and rotation, which again is hugely difficult to do, given the bubble fatigue that people have been going through. But again, another poo-pooing on the regime. If you were to say how you feel about this Silverwood time as coach, like, we've not had a million coaches over the years, and we've had some good ones as well. We had Flower, who was a very winning coach. May have rubbed people up the wrong way, but he was a winning coach. Duncan Fletcher, who really modernised England Test cricket throughout. We really became a powerhouse under him, coming off the back of those old Nasser Hussain days. Where does Chris Silverwood's time, appear to come against some of those? Maybe not those names, but maybe like a Peter Moore's sort of name.
I think it's similar ballpark, isn't it? I was thinking Moore's when you were just building the question. It's going to be a bit of a meh. In a few years' time, you'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah, Chris Silverwood, he coached England, didn't he? I completely forgot about that. And that's, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him, but that's how I think, that's how I will see this when, you know, in the fullness of time. I just need to always say, Duncan Fletcher did a great job and he did a hell of a lot of things, but I give so much credit to Nasser Hussain for changing the mentality of English cricket. Without Nasser Hussain, Duncan Fletcher would not have been a success. He needed that type of person and that type of captain at the helm. So I put so much credit to Nasser just changing the whole direction of English cricket, in my opinion. But yeah, Silverwood, I think, is very much a middle of the road meh, not really offensive. Didn't really, you know, I don't think anyone's going to hate him. Certainly won't be anyone saying he should have kept the job. Just the way it is. I think Joe Root, I think we need to get onto Joe Root shortly, and we'll get onto it whenever you want to get onto it, Rob. But he's a bit of a lucky boy, and I think that's the way it's been seen. That, you know, he was part of a lot of these decisions. And when we talk about Strauss saying about, you know, we need an outside influence in that camp, perhaps he's getting at that a little bit as well. They're all in it together a little bit, aren't they? Silverwood, Thorpe, and Root. I want to know who picked those teams, who had the final say on those teams, who was banging the drum to say, I don't want Broad at the Gabba, who's got a brilliant record on those types of pitches against David Warner in particular, blah, blah, blah. You know, who was doing that? For me, I would suggest Root has probably got more of a voice than we realise and more sway to take that 11 onto the field than we realise. So a lot of Silverwood's criticism, and he'll take it because he seems an honourable guy, but probably he's shielding a little bit of Root. Also, you know, the bowling, Ben Stokes the way he did. You know, Ben Stokes hadn't played cricket for Lord knows how many months. And then here we go, later on in the series, I'm going to get you bowling bouncers for half a day. You know, see if we can break Ben Stokes. That's the game for today. You know, so he's a lucky boy. And it seems that Strauss wants this new setup. So obviously we'll get onto it in a minute, but Root is retained as captain, isn't he, for the West Indies Test series. Yeah. But that's as far as it goes. Strauss hasn't made any ongoing commitment because he doesn't want the director of cricket role. He wants to maintain his status quo with his family, etc. I'm sure there'll be a role for him in the ECB, but he doesn't want to be too hands-on in that director of cricket role, the Ashley Giles role that Strauss used to have. But it's clear that he wants to put a director of cricket in place, put a coach in place, or coaches, more importantly. I think that's inevitable that we're going to have two coaches. And then it will be up to them to decide who captain will be. And as much as we love Joe Root, the player especially, I think he's very lucky that there's not a 2 or 3 candidates kicking the door down. I did see somebody, was it Nick Compton, suggested Stuart Broad? Yep. I think he'd be a wonderful appointment. Just as short term, we're not asking for a captain for the next 10 years. We're asking for someone maybe for the next 18 months, just in Test cricket. I think that'd be a wonderful thing if Root decided he wanted to step down, or if the new, you know, the incoming coach and director of cricket decided they want to take it in a different direction. So maybe there is a couple of options out there.
Yeah, it will be interesting. My gut tells me that Root will stay.
Yep, me too.
But it all depends on who comes in and who they want as leader. And we'll talk through some of the candidates in a second. But different type of people want different types of people to be the leader on the pitch and operate in different ways. And we'll touch on a few of those names later down the road. Are you ready to get into that, who it might be next, or is there anything else you want to touch on the England axing?
No, I think we covered it off because basically we assumed that this would happen on the last time we spoke about this. I don't want to say last pod because obviously we did a little review against India, West Indies. So if you're interested in that series, the one days and T20s, go and have a look at that. But we did speak about a lot of this, saying it was inevitable. They're going to go. It's simple as that. All we have now is a few extra quotes from the likes of Strauss and Harrison, etc. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think it's really interesting. One, to see who they're probably going to put in as an interim coach, and then there's that second conversation of who the coach could be going forward, or coaches. I think they're going to put one coach in place first, and then they'll work out the white ball. Not that it's a secondary importance, but I think they have to get Test cricket right, and that will be the most important appointment in this moment.
So I've got Sky Bet. 1, do not bet. Hate betting. But 2, looking at Sky Bet to work out who the favourites are is a good way to kind of go whose name's on the table at the moment. And the guy that is absolutely stone dead favourite, we're going to touch on last. We're not coming to him. But second on the list is a man that averaged a touch under 40 for England, was England captain at one stage, scored twin hundreds in a test match in Barbados. I think it was in 1994 for England on a campaign where they got bowled out for 46. A.J. Stewart. Alex Stewart. to his
This
friend.
is me twirling my bat.
Oh, you're doing the Stuart twirl.
This is my Alex Stewart.
Great twirl. He really had a good twirl. He was confident at the crease.
Come on, how many people, hands up, how many people after watching Alex Stewart, probably some of the older people here, but how many people started twirling the bat a little bit after watching Alex Stewart? I mean, he was obsessive. He must have gone through so many pairs of gloves and grips. AJ Stewart, yeah. This seems an odd one. I always thought he was an agent. He was a bit of an administrator. Has he been a director of cricket? You'll tell me his CV, I'm sure, in a minute.
Yep.
But his name came up because it seemed like a very sensible appointment as an interim coach. I've got no problem with an Alex Stewart coming on board. He's a tough character. He's not going to take any nonsense. He's not going to be too easily swayed by people's opinions. He will go out and he will make some decisions himself. But removing interim out of the conversation, if we're talking about full-time test coach, I struggle to understand the CV as a coach. Forget about the, yes, what a great player, long time player as well. Played it late into his 30s, didn't he? Yeah, I struggle with this one. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, so his CV, Rich, 2009, he did some part-time consulting as a specialising in batting and wicket-keeper coach and mentoring. Could see him very good in that role. Yeah. Since retiring, he took on club ambassador role at Surrey County Cricket Club, made an executive director in 2011, 2013. He took charge of the first team affairs following the sacking of Chris Adams until a long-term successor was found. So, interim. October 2013, announced that Graham Ford would become the head coach, with Stewart becoming director of cricket. I struggle to see this. It feels like he's pigeonholed for the wrong role here. It feels like he's a guy that's a little bit more business savvy and a little bit more switched on to operational stuff that might fit in with the director of cricket role if he lines up to what the expectations are from Tom Harrison at the top and what Tom Harrison wants.
Well, I'm hoping first and foremost that Andrew Strauss is the man making decisions, because if Tom Harrison is making any decision whatsoever on this or building a profile, then we really are in trouble. It has to be Strauss. There's no point Strauss being away from his kids if he's not going to be the man that's absolutely 100% in control of that decision. I think you're right. I think Alex Stewart, because his name was thrown forward, it was just bandied about in the media, wasn't it, to be the interim? I think the betting company has just tagged him on for the next head coach. If that's the betting for the actual permanent head coach. I think, like you said, I think he's going to be miscast. I think he's in the wrong role. I think he needs to go and potentially get his name chucked in the ring. The hat, whatever that saying is, mixing metaphors probably, but get himself involved in that conversation for director of cricket rather than coach.
Yeah, I agree. So he's 11-4, mate, which is pretty, it's good for the bookies odds. Don't even know what odds are. Gary Kirsten next, 4-1. Now, Kirsten's a name that's been bandied around. He's kind of jumped the gun on the job interview a little bit by saying, oh, yeah, I might be interested in a little bit of red ball, mate. But he comes with a high-class CV. He was Indian coach from 2008 to 2011. He was coach when they won the World Cup. He was praised by all the players for improving and enhancing the players' techniques, motivate them, and then discussing the tactics deployed on the field. Huge increase in Indian cricket and what they can go and achieve during that time. After then took over South Africa for a couple of years, left them after they reached world #1. So this is a pretty good CV. But both times he stepped away because he wanted to spend more time with his family. Is Gary Kirsten a legitimate name that should be on the list for this England role?
Remind me if you can, was he coach of all formats in his previous international roles?
Yes, he was. And yes, he was.
Okay, so from what we heard, when Ashley Giles was looking at the next coach when Silverwood was appointed, it did appear that Gary Kirsten was part of that conversation. But I think at the time, it's been let out, it's been known, passed to the media, etc., that he really only wanted to do the test match side. He didn't want to do all three formats, which I think is absolutely sensible. There is no sense whatsoever anymore in going down the route of a head coach all three formats. I think when we get onto Justin Langer in a little bit, and the conversation around him and Australia, I think Australia will be one of the most reluctant teams to change the way they do the head coach. But I think even they are now seeing that you have to move towards two-coach setup. Yeah. So Kirsten, for me, I think he if we'd have seen things differently, if maybe somebody else other than Giles was making the decision previously, I think we might have seen Gary Kirsten already coach of England. How things would have changed, he'd have probably been sacked by now if the batters had played anything like that. But it's really important that we have a coach that will improve people. It's really important that we'll have a coach that coaches his coaches, be responsible, be in charge of the whole setup. And it's so important as well that he's got experience. He knows what it takes to perform in certain countries, in certain conditions, and all that sort of stuff. Vast history as a player for South Africa, and huge amounts of experience. As a coach as well. I think he's perfect. I really do. Yeah. Unless there's somebody else that jumps up and says that, like a Stephen Fleming, I've got a soft spot because obviously his time at Nottinghamshire and obviously New Zealand, absolute legend. But unless someone else jumps up and starts banging the table, I can't see past Kirsten at the moment. I'm getting locked in.
You're getting locked in. You've got blinkers on. It's like, I want a bit of Kirsten. And the people that's been describing him as a coach, mate, they're not just Joe Blogs off the street. This is MS Dhoni, who described him as the best thing to ever happen to Indian cricket. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, CV. That's praise. Yeah, you can add that, can't you? That's Gary Kirsten, date of birth, quote, MS Dhoni. That's it. Just print your CV off those 3 lines. Give me any role you like. Yeah, I'd probably put that as my Twitter bio, actually. Oh, absolutely, yeah. As opposed to once appeared as a question on The Chase, which is true. This podcast was on The Chase. Two more names then, so I'm not going to go too far down the list. 8-1, Paul Collingwood. I look at Collingwood, mate, and I think he should be involved in this England setup. I don't think he should be involved in Red Bull setup. What's your thoughts? I think he's absolutely the perfect candidate, or one of the perfect candidates. Maybe if we shortlisted down to 2 or 3, he should be a shortlisted candidate for the white ball coaching role. Absolutely, 100%. So I think, if you could have Gary Kirsten and then somebody like Collingwood as your 2 coaches, I could live with that. Yep, you'd be a happy man. Yeah, but not Red Bull. Last name on the list, mate. And it's been brewing for a while. And I'll hand over to you for his statement in a second. But Justin Langer is no longer head coach of this Australian cricket team. And he is 2-1 odds-on favourite for the England role at the moment. And now that might just be everyone going, oh, yeah, we'll take the guy. But it's time as Australian coach. He retained the Ashes in 2019. Bearing in mind he took over after Darren Lehmann's infamous ball tampering scandal. So he was the man to repair Australian cricket. He won the T20 World Cup despite playing no T20 cricket with his first team for a year. He won the Ashes 4-0 in Australia despite playing no test match cricket for a year, and was subsequently asked to reapply for his job, given those credentials, and was only offered a short-term contract. He is now available in market, Rich. He is exceptional in terms of the output that he got, that he's been able to obtain. He took over Western Australia. During that time, they won the One Day Cup. They were runners-up in the Sheffield Shield for 2 or 3 years, won the Big Bash 2 or 3 times. A winning coach. What do we want? He's not bad, is he? He's not bad. There's obviously something else at play if after what you've just reeled off, they only wanted to offer him a 6-month extension. So this is the whole thing, isn't it? It's not just about his success as a coach. There's clearly something else at play. Yeah. And that's the big part of this, isn't it? So his resignation. It's not a resignation. It is a resignation. They offered him a contract. He said no because he saw it as a kick in his face. He takes a few pot shots back at Cricket Australia, and there's been a lot of storm going on from players going, or ex-players going, how can you not back this guy? He's done all this when we were in a sorry state, and his CV's pretty good, and he delivers results. What more do you want? Yeah, and that's the thing. You've got to remember who he was, and who Cricket Australia were at the moment he was taken on, wasn't it? We had a lot of fallout from Sandpaper Gate and all the nonsense around that. And, I'm not saying everything was handled brilliantly, because if there had have been, a certain ex-wicketkeeper captain wouldn't have been in the role for the last 2 years. But he has tried to take this Australia team forward. They're certainly not as
much of a bunch of bogans as they used to be.
Yeah. You
So
could even say you quite like them,
great.
because a lot of them come across as just good blokes.
Yes, yeah. I think the absolute idiots that influenced and pulled the rest of the team down to their level have sorted their heads out a bit, haven't they?
Yes.
And the ones you kind of liked are still the ones you liked, but they're just even more likable now. And weirdly, I prefer this Australian team without Tim Payne. I don't know what it was about Tim Payne. There was just something that niggled me. It just annoyed me. So, I knew he was too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. It'll come back and bite you. Do not send pictures of that to anyone ever.
Ever. Nobody.
I'm going to read Langer's resignation statement, because I think
this
leads into a conversation around if he's the right guy to lead England, mate. So, having been away from home since the first week of October, yesterday was a tumultuous day. That's pretty good reading from me. And with quarantine restrictions, now that I am back and unable to do anything publicly at the moment, but I want people to know I am happy with my decision and proud of what I've achieved. There have been a great deal of media speculation on my future as an Australian men's cricket coach over the last 12 months, and it has taken an enormous toll on my family. I hope through this time and throughout my tenure, I have held myself with integrity and dignity. Last night, I was offered a short-term contract until the end of the T20 World Cup in Australia, with the sentiment of going out on a high. It goes on.
So it was only a 6 month. Sorry, that's just. I think it's important if we jump in as we go. It's such a long statement. Give you a breather. That's the first important dig, isn't it? It was only a 6 month contract.
Yeah.
The way he's worded that, go out on a high after 6 months.
Yeah. Like, is there a bigger high than retaining the Ashes in England, winning the Ashes 4-0 at home, and being 1 wicket away from a whitewash, and winning a T20 World Cup you had no right to win?
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, he's done all right, hasn't he? He's done all right.
Yeah, he's okay. After careful consideration, I've decided not to accept this contract renewal, and as a result, I believe it is in everyone's best interest for the Australian cricket team to begin the next chapter immediately. If media reports are correct, several senior players and a couple of support staff don't support me moving forward, and it is now apparent the Cricket Australia board and you, Nick, are also keen, don't even Nick is, keen to see the team move in another direction, and I respect that.
Right, is Nick Hockley? There's a Hockley who's done a lot of talking here. Nick Hockley, Cricket Australia Chief Executive Nick Hockley.
Oh, okay.
Who I'm just going to jump in with a little bit. We are naturally disappointed Justin has decided against continuing as coach, but respect his decision and wish him all the best in the future. In other words, thank God he's gone.
Yeah, kind regards.
Nick.
My life has been built on values of honesty, respect, trust, truth, and performance. And if that comes across as too intense at times, I apologise. Growling at the player at point while you're batting. It is said that in any venture, if you leave things in a better place than when you started, then you have done a good job. Whilst it is not up to me to judge, I hope Australians respect what I've achieved over the last 4 years in Australian cricket. From day one, I believed it was possible to both win and play the game in the spirit that is now expected from our supporters. Do you agree with that statement, that he has got them playing in the right spirit?
I think they're better. They're much, much better than they were. They still play a brand of cricket I find a little bit sometimes hard to take. Doesn't always sit right with me, the way they play. I'm not saying England are perfect, by the way. Don't anyone try and say that we're saying that. But I'm still not a huge fan of the way they conduct themselves. When the tails are up, it's that thing. No respect, but we get called whingy bombs. Aussies, honestly, they're the most confident, arrogant, whatever you want to call it, aggressive team in the world when they're on the up. When they're on the down, they are the moody, meaniest, mardiest bunch of blokes, bunch of supporters you'll ever come across. They're not good losers. Let's put it that way.
Not good losers. Whereas we're used to it. We're cool with that now, mate.
Exactly.
For the last 4 years, it's proven that it can be achieved. I'm very proud of the team for their efforts on and off the cricket field. I hope we have made Australians proud and earned respect from countries around the world. In terms of going out on a high, I am blessed to have been part of a T20 World Cup winning squad, an Ashes winning squad, watched the Test team rise to number one ranked team that is in the world today, being selected as the Wisden Coach of the Year, and being elevated to the Australian Cricket Hall of Fame, all in the last 5 months.
Well, imagine what he'd have done in 6 months if he'd been given another 6 months. He'd be president, prime minister. It'd have probably solved the environmental issues in this planet. Jesus Christ, Justin, give us another 6.
Yep, his CV is pretty strong here. I'm grateful that today I'm going out on a high. Australian cricket means the world to me. It has since I was a kid, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to play for and coach our national team. I'm thankful to the board for the opportunity, and I will take with me many cherished memories and friendships from our last 4 years. Hopefully a good job has been done, and I wish the team every success for the future. Now, we know he's a successful coach. He's just spent, 12 tweets, possibly more at 140 characters, telling us how good a coach he's been, how he's going out on a high. The question is, if someone's this successful and there's a moth flying in your face, if someone's this successful, why wouldn't you do everything you can in your power to keep them? If you're a football team and you're winning and winning matters, what is it?
Well, first of all, what really strikes me with that statement is how humble Justin Langer is.
He's done bits. He probably averaged 25 and coached the under-13s. Oh, no, he won a World Cup and Ashes. And
it's one of those. It's like, does nobody else tell him he's done well or pat him on the back? Because he's telling the world what he wants to be told he's done a good job about. Yeah. Look, leadership is... People see it differently. There's a traditional view of leadership where you're shouty and, you're top down, aren't you? You're quite aggressive and you're confrontational and all these sort of things. And I think that's a way Justin Langer grew up playing cricket in that old Australian system. It started with, Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, all that sort of era, wasn't it? It was very, very aggressive, which got us to the point where it had to stop because it had gone too far with Smith and Warner, etc. So that's where he grew up. So that's really what he wants to do, but he's having to control himself a little bit. But leadership in this day and age in any sport, especially top-level sport, they're grown men, they're not kids. They don't want someone barking at them all the time. They don't want someone shouting at them all the time. You need to deal with people on an individual basis. You can't just treat everybody the same. Don't know. I haven't been in the dressing room with Justin Langer, so I can't say if that's what he's done or not. But it appears that he's rubbed up way too many players completely the wrong way. It's like a zoo in your garage tonight, Rob. We had a wasp earlier. We had to stop recording because Rob was dancing around like he had a pint of cider in his hand. And now he's dancing because of a moth. It's a moth. It's fine. Moths are lovely.
There's bugs everywhere. It's really muggy weather in Auckland at the moment. And it's just bringing everyone to the party.
That's all good. It's all good. But yeah, leadership is different these days. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all, aggressive, for want of a better term, coach. And if you've rubbed up this many of your squad, you're talking of a squad of 16 or 17, 18 players. If there's been, how many did he say? I can't remember if he said a number, but, I'm guessing we're talking 6 or 8 or 10 players, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, have expressed their frustration in his way of going about business. You can have all that success in the world, and I'm sure those players appreciate the success. But it doesn't mean it's going to be long-term sustained success if you don't have your team going with you. And that's what it seems to me. I think the 6 months was almost like I forget the word now. When you first start a job, you get a period of 3 months at the start, which is called
getting your feet under the table, maybe. No,
there's an official term for it. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway, regardless, you know what I'm talking about, everybody. But yeah, I think that they looked at it as another period of that. And it's like, look, we need to see if you improve with the way you're dealing with people. And if you are, maybe we can consider going forward. But I don't think they wanted to, did they? I think they wanted to be polite. And I think they knew that if they only offered him 6 months, he would reject it.
Yeah,
it made a decision easier for them. No, typical administrators, they didn't want to be confrontational in a way. They didn't want to take the big decision and say, Langer, you're out, mate. We don't like the way you're doing business. Great. Thanks for all your help. You did a great job, but we want you out. They made it. It was quite an offensive offer to Langer. They knew it would be, and he's turned it down.
Yeah. And fair play to him for turning it down. If you've got those credentials, regardless of interpersonal skills that you might have, you're going to get employed somewhere else and get your worth. The question comes is he's 2-1 favourite for this England job at the moment. That might change over the next couple of days. It might just be a reaction to him becoming. Would we want him as an England cricket coach? And we're coming from there's been different setups within this England regime, but we're coming off possibly, I can't think of the right exact word to say it, but it's all been about the players and taking care of the players. and rest and rotation. And winning games of cricket and having your best 11 on the pitch every single game is almost a thing of the past. And rightly or wrongly, depending where you sit on the scale of, you know what, they've taken care of these players, they've done a great job. Oh, wait, no, sorry, you've lost games, I don't care about that. Justin Langer, possibly, and you can't say for definite, possibly, but given the things that are in play at the moment, possibly doesn't fit into the mould of what England want from a cricket coach. They want to win, but they want a good person that's going to do it as well. No,
I think England is doing a lot of soul searching. There's a lot of introspection going on at the moment with the game as a whole. As we know, it's one thing getting a director of cricket and a new coach or coaches involved. It's also the county structure, the calendar of the county summer, the lack of prioritisation of red ball domestic cricket. There's so many things, just the fundamentals, and then it's mental health. Equality, the lack of opportunity for black, Asian, whatever background, that I don't think the ECB will want to take on the challenge of a confrontational coach. Yeah, it's just not in this environment at the moment. On the back of a couple of years of bubbles and all the rest of it, if you get somebody that's going to be barking and all the rest of it, yes, it'd be great to get the results on the back end of it, but at what cost? You'll have players going, I'm not playing red ball cricket anymore. I'm going to retire from that. I'm going to go around the world playing white ball cricket and fill my bank account. That's what potentially will happen. Maybe some of these England players need challenging like that. I don't know. I saw that on the screen, Rob. Another little buzzing thing flying around. Yeah, I don't think the ECB or whoever, Strauss, etc., will want a bloke like Langer. Yeah, and I don't think he's a good fit for English cricket at the moment. Jokes incoming. Yeah, we don't like winning. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. But likewise, if I'm Justin Langer, unless I really hate Cricket Australia now, I wouldn't want to go from all this stress, all this time away that you're talking about in your 140 characters, mate. You broke the rules of 140 characters. But then going to take on a job the other side of the world where you'd either have to move your family or be away from them the whole time. Like, he's a winning enough coach that he will walk into any franchise and get paid. Yeah, I was going to say, what would you do the T20 circuit, mate? Yeah, what would you rather do? What would you rather do? Go and coach England. England, the old enemy, isn't it? Why would an Australian want to take the England job? Like you say, unless he was really wanting to show his ex, what he's moved on. Yeah. So yeah, go and be coach of one of the Big Bash teams. You'll probably get yourself a gig in the IPL at some point in the not too distant future. Yeah. See where you go. I mean, Pakistan potentially. There's loads of opportunities for him all around the world. The 100, he can come and be a coach of a 100 team. Lucky him if he's not already. I don't know. Don't really care. Just want to quickly add, Andrew McDonald's been put in as an interim. I've just mentioned Pakistan, and that's why it just made me think of this. Yeah, he's going to be in charge of that tour that's going ahead. The first time in 24 years, I think it is, that Australia are going to be touring Pakistan soon. Brilliant. Cannot wait. That is going to be a really, really fun series, mate, because we know Pakistan cricket is on the rise, and they've got some really, really good young players coming through. And it's more that they're hosting it at home, right? Yes,
that was
that's
problem
exciting.
With England's cancellation. That was the problem with the Black Caps cancellation. It's such just a huge disappointment for these guys who's missed out on so much cricket. So many great players they've not seen play Test cricket at home, mate.
Did you see Alex Hales, what he said recently? Because he's playing, obviously, in Pakistan again. He was saying that, there was no reason. It just seemed bizarre. There was no reason. It was such a short tour, wasn't it? They were in and out of the country in about 6 days. There was no need for it. He knows that he's not going to... Well, I think he was talking about how he'd love to be back playing for England. He's been playing the best cricket of his life and all the rest of it. But just the fact that he criticised England's decision for not going to Pakistan, that will not sit well with anyone. And that'll probably push him a bit further away. But I really respected him for saying that, because it was absolutely right. It was just a shocking decision from England to not go on that tour to Pakistan. Really very poor.
But that kicks off in March, mate. March the 4th in Rawalpindi, then a game in Karachi, then a test match in Lahore. They're there. I think they've got some one-days or T20s thrown into the mix. It's a proper old-school tour, mate, where you do a bit of everything while you're over there. So, looking forward to that. But, the podcast, we want to finish on a high. And although the outcome might not be quite a high, I actually think there's a huge amount of positives to take from it, Rich. We covered last time the Under-19 World Cup semi-finals, England's superb game against Afghanistan and how they were able to book a place in the final. 1998 winners, I think they were, the second time it was ever held. And they were going up against India, mate.
Yeah. India win.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Everyone knows that now. India beat England in this final. Their 5th win at under-19 World Cup level in 8 attempts.
Yeah.
Their system, I know it's a big old country. I know there's a lot of players to choose from, but you still have to identify the right players. You still have to coach the right players, pick them, put them in the right roles. And they're doing that on a consistent basis. Absolutely fantastic. This Indian team, will go from strength to strength. And you see that they're in a moment, aren't they, at the moment, with some of the more senior players moving aside. There's some of those younger players starting to try and break into the senior setups. They've been there a while, but they aren't quite the leading players yet, are they, these younger guys? But it just shows there is a way forward. And there's going to be opportunity around the corner for some of these guys very, very soon. I thought England did really well. I mean, we'll get into it, but when England got to the point of 61 for 6, 91 for 7,
it was a fantastic at that point.
Oh, absolutely. There was no chance in the world we were winning at that point. But to get to 189 all out of 44.5 overs, James Root with a fantastic 95 of just 116 balls. He was going like the slowest thing you've ever seen at the start of his innings. But he went through the gears and he just kept there as people were falling around him. He just kept going, and set up a really, really competitive target, which for a while we were getting excited about.
Yeah.
India were only about 4 down, closing in. Then we got a couple of wickets, and it just got tight until the very end, wasn't it? I think they scored the last 14 runs in about an over and a bit, and they put the game to bed. But I thought it was a fantastic effort from England. What grit, they've shown at times that they can lead from the top of this lineup, but they've also shown up against it, players stepped up, the grit, and they never ever gave up in the field and with the ball as well. So you've got to give so much credit to this setup.
Fine effort, mate, and some names really being made. Like this is gone are the days where like the '98 one that England won, no one even knows it's going on. Whereas you might have been able to follow it on teletext. That was literally the only way to know the game was going on. Because I can remember doing it when Bilal Shafayat was playing for England in the 90s. Because he was a local boy who I got out once playing school cricket. Just FYI, in swinging Yorker, leg stump still only just push back. But this is completely different. Social media has changed people's want to absorb more information on the topics that they love. We love cricket. Our Twitter feed is full of people that love cricket, and people were watching. It was on at a great time as well for most countries in the world, except us. And it was just accessible. And I thought it was a brilliant competition. It didn't go too long. It was about the right length. But from an England standpoint, we saw player names, those next generation players, start to take a step. So when you start seeing the county teams getting ready for the next, and you're looking on the first day of the year, and you're like, "Oh, you know what? Tom Prester's got a game. Great! I'm gonna see how this guy goes." It's identifying young talent who are at the moment the cream and the crop of under-19 cricket, and England hopefully have got these guys wrapped around and kind of going, right, where are you now? Where do you need to go? And England, that player pathway role that doesn't exist in men's cricket, working with the counties, going, how's he getting on? What's he like? How is he as a person? All those sorts of things. So you could see Jacob Bethel, George Thomas, Tom Prest, guys that have said it alike, Joshua Boyden. There was 3 guys from Lancashire in this team who did absolutely phenomenal. And Rian Ahmed as well, who's going to need a lot of support given he's a spinner and wanting to play for England, which means going and playing county cricket, which is almost a no-no for spinners. So, a huge amount of support needs to be given to these guys, because all we've seen from this is there's a lot of potential there, and they're good at this age. How do we go from good to great for when they're fully fledged adults and part of the first class system and onwards?
Yeah, exactly. But find spaces in your county teams for some of these players. There just has to be. I don't think there was hardly any of the guys that played that wouldn't hold it up in county cricket. I remember when we spoke about county cricket a while ago, and I was saying maybe you should have like a bit of a get the younger players in incentivize that a little bit. Not sure that's the right way to go, but there has to be an encouragement for these players to get in. If you identify this talent and you know that this is good and these guys are going to be going forward, get them in as quick as you can. I'm not saying chuck them in and let them fail, but chuck them in, give them a game or two, pull them out, in and out a little bit. Any sport, isn't it? You've got to expose these young players to competition. You've got to expose them to the top level of what they need to be at. They might not quite realise yet what they need to do to sustain and be mega successful at county level. So get them in as quick as we can. I want to see Rayan Ahmed. I want to see Josh Boyden. I want to see George Thomas and Bethel. Jacob Bethel, absolute talent. James Roux, for that, he didn't look the most fluid, explosive player in the world, but that was a hell of a knock. That was in the final. Think of what he's got. We often talk about test level, etc. for England. They need that X factor. They need that something, and that's the sort of innings which starts pointing, saying he's got something. I like that. So yeah, get these players involved as quick as we can, and just see where they go. Just encourage them. Certain Joe Root, Josh Butler, wasn't it? Ben Stokes, I think, was always part of one of the under-19 teams.
Yeah.
Let's see what's next. I just think it's fantastic. Can I just make one quick point? And I don't want to niggle about this, but on the commentary towards the end of that game, I thought Graham Swan in the commentary box, who we love, was a little bit overcritical of Tom Prest as a captain. Just with regards to field placements, being picky, I thought, really picky. There was no credit when bowling changes towards the end was getting wickets, or the fact that the team kept going and kept fighting and kept going. But he was being really, really picky. And I just found it a little bit, it just jumped out at me as I don't understand why this guy who's about 18, who's not captained really that much, obviously, because he's 18, is being criticised by a guy that never really captained. And the one thing we've always spoke about, it's easy to say as when you're not a captain, I want a man in slip. Okay, Brill, can we bring a bloke off the boundary then? As in like who's sat having a cup of tea. Does he go in slip? You have to take someone from somewhere else on the field if you want a field change. And it always seems to me, he should have had a man in there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, where from? And that's the thing. That's Tom Prest is there doing it in real time, real pressure in a final, Sky cameras in foreign conditions. And he's trying to make these decisions on the fly. A bit of credit. He's done all right. He's done pretty well as a captain in this. He's got his team through to the final and wasn't far off winning this competition. So, yeah, I just a bit strange. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it is easy done, and I think it's easy done at any level. And I think when you've got the under-19s playing, you need to remember that the guy bowling might be 17 years old. The guy bowling who's 17-year-old probably isn't Andrew Flintoff in his peak that could put the ball wherever you told him to put it. It's different. Yeah. Different levels, and hence different fields being set and things like that, and plans that they're working to, and obviously helped by people like Richard Dawson trying to work out how they do it. But I think
Richard Dawson,
England coach. I think overall it is a really, really good competition, and it's been ran really well. The ICC actually showed every game for free through their website if you just signed up. Which I think is fantastic for the game, and there should be more things like this available. More things around women's cricket available. More things around youth cricket. Just exposure. Expose these things. Make it easy for people to, take it in. Because the thing about people that love cricket is they just want to watch more of it. And then they want to watch more of their England team. They want to watch England women. They want to watch England men. They want to watch the under-19s. It's just how it is.
Mate, people put live streams of their club cricket up and people watch it. People, like I said, people watch cricket. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. India, we're not going into them, obviously. Well, if you want to mention anyone, go for it. But for me, I just wanted to focus on how good, what performance this England team did. Fantastic talent in India. If you've watched this, you'll follow some of those names forward as well. I'm sure you will. England coach, and the reason I just jumped and said, Richard Dawson. He's one of the names that's been bandied about that might, surprisingly, take on the interim coach for the West Indies tour. I think it's him and Collingwood, I think, have been put forward. Yeah. I would suggest that probably both will go forward. Who has what role, I don't know, but I'd imagine both of those guys will be part of it. I hadn't really thought of Richard Dawson, actually, when we were first talking about this, but that seems a very, very sensible decision if that's what they go for.
Good choice, mate. Breaking news before I press it. And I just want initial reaction. Ahmedabad have named their franchise for the IPL.
Oh, no, it's not Super something, is it?
So we're the Lucknow Super Giants. We've got, and it's not confirmed, but I can see it from about 6 different tweets, which means it's legitimate. I've read it 6 times on the internet. Ahmedabad Titans.
Big again, isn't it? What is it with these blokes that look after these Indian cricket teams? Everything's got to be big. Come on, guys. Come on.
You wouldn't have Ahmedabad Ladybirds or something like that, would you? That's not instilling fear into people.
I would have Ahmedabad fruit juices because that's all we lived on for a week when I was in Ahmedabad watching the Test match.
I'd go Ahmedabad Star Bazaar. I think that was the name of the supermarket we always used to go to.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's not the worst. It's not the worst. Ahmedabad Titans. Yeah, it's not the worst, but it's not hit me with a wow. It's nearly as bad as Washington Commanders, mate.
I was about to bring that up. You know, I've already said I'm going all in on Ahmedabad as my IPL team.
Yeah, me too, mate. Soft spot.
Working there, living there.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed my time there. I'm now a Titan, and Washington Commanders is also a very, very good name. Excellent. Thank you for your initial reaction, Rich. That's good. Glad we did that. So next podcast, I've got a couple of ideas around something that we're going to do, which Rich doesn't know about yet, which is very, very exciting, where we're actually going to be ranking all the opening teams in Test cricket from best to worst. And Rich, I've pulled off the spreadsheet that's got all the details of everything you need to know. You just need to put them in the order where you do it. So that's something to look forward to for me.
Stato
loves it. But yeah, we'll have a look through that next time. India versus West Indies is going on in the background. We'll cover that next time. It's coming along after a few more games have been played. Wherever you are listening, guys, make sure you like, review, and subscribe. We'll catch you guys next time.